Hi, thank you so much for joining us for the season finale of Learning for a Changing World. This is episode 3, AI automation and the skills reset. It is a roasting day today, but we've got a really hot topic and some really cool guests. Sorry for the dad pun, but I had to get it in. My name is Gavin from FE News, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Gray from NCFE's innovation team.
So hi, Gray. Another one we're doing together, and a really cool topic that we're going to be looking at today. This is a joint FE News NCFE live stream series, and this is 2 minis that we put together actually. So got Learning for a Changing World we're wrapping up today. We've previously we're looking at rewriting the rules, but today is a hot topic for me around AI automation and the skills reset. Great. Just sort of thinking this through a little bit, how is AI automation, how is that reshaping what we're seeing at the moment for the labour market, and what could that mean for skills demand now and for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely 2 parts to this answer, because there's things that we know and there's things that we know we don't know, and it's kind of that short-term,
Yeah.
long-term difference. So I guess what do we know? We know that AI is cutting across all sectors. We know that people are seeing opportunity everywhere, potential change everywhere, obviously risks everywhere as well. I guess what we're not seeing is as much sort of sustained business impact as we maybe thought we might see from AI. So if I think about NCFE right now, we're doing lots of work to promote, for example, thoughtful AI adoption by colleagues, and trying to give them the skills and the time they need to build those skills so they can get the most out of AI right now. But we do acknowledge it's a different technology. It's a probabilistic technology, so it doesn't react the same every time. And so we need to give people time to develop their confidence. We need to teach them to drive the AI so that they're, remaining in charge, if you like, and develop the culture and things like the right governance and the right level of criticality of the outputs, and all those kind of things build together for the here and now. Just to give you an example, we ran a couple of agentathons at NCFE recently, and colleagues were really pleased to get a bit of time to have some instruction on how do you do it, where do you build an agent, what does an agent instruction look like.
Yeah.
But actually, what they liked the most was a couple of hours of experimentation. So they could build an agent, they could test it, they could improve the outputs, they could iterate basically. And this kind of time for experimenting was really, really valuable to them. So I think those are the skills that we need to develop now. But I think your question was maybe a bit more about the longer term. And in all honesty, that's where the known unknowns comes in, because I think we're heading for exponential change. And so that is going to, so I think what we know is it's going to surprise us. And therefore we need to be ready to be surprised, I guess. And, what can we do about that now? We can try and develop the best kind of set of curiosity, adaptability, problem solving skills to be ready for that surprise. And that's, to be honest, that's what I know. But I know Deirdre and Kieran will have loads to add to this when we bring them in. So I'm excited to hear what they say.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just one other thing, just before we, you're a part of NCFE. It's an awarding organisation and a social impact charities. What are you sort of seeing with the changes that we're seeing at the moment around the education and qualification system? How is it keeping a pace with the technological change now, but also planning for the future of it? And where can you see sort of key gaps that are in there?
That's a massive challenge for us, because the qualification systems is quite slow to change and develop.
Yep.
And there's reason for that. And there's a fairly long process to build a new regulated qualification. And there's, like I say, that there's a reason that is takes a while, because it's very complex. And there's also this movement of qualifications being much more centrally designed in terms of their content and assessment design and things, which, from the point of view of simplifying the system, makes absolute sense. But it has got the potential to make that time even longer to develop new qualifications. So I think that's a challenge that we need to be talking about. I guess in terms of what can we do now, should we have AI AI skills built into every qualification, or certainly most qualifications. That kind of makes sense to me. I'm a big fan of the Bridge AI competency framework, and if you look at the worker level of that framework, you get a really good sense of what do you need to be able to do now, to use AI right now. And then I guess thinking back to the last question, in the longer term, or to prepare for the longer term, we should be thinking about how do we include, criticality, how do we include flexibility, adaptability, and so on and so forth. But one thing I would say is that on those kind of essential skills, that they're really difficult to develop and teach and learn. They're not simple things. So, and I don't think it's often said actually that we should acknowledge that it takes time to develop, for example, problem solving. It's not an easy thing to do. It's so multifaceted, and that's the same for essential skills, I think. So giving people time within the qualification rather than it kind of just being an add-on to the subject content, it should be, I'm not saying front and center, but it should have a huge kind of focus on those things.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's also being inclusive for all, isn't it? Those that are very far away from engagement with AI, those there's still a massive digital skills gap, but those also that are very, very, very advanced, like if we were to put them into levels, which is always a bit pigeonholey, but 8 and beyond around what's happening with the future, like how do you develop there? We have some interesting people in the audience. Dan Fitzpatrick, AI Royalty. How are you, Dan? Forbes magazine author and likes to hang out in San Francisco and stuff. Dan, if you think with me and Gray have got some cool things to say, let me introduce you to two absolutely epic guests. I think that is pretty good timing to bring in our amazing guests. So we've got Deirdre's downplayed it. We've got Associate Professor Deirdre Hughes, who is a very massive fan of her work. And we've also got Kieran White, also a massive fan of Kieran, who we're getting to know more and more. I'll bring them both into the studio. Deirdre, Kieran, how are you both?
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us.
And I saw Dan Fitzpatrick's comment as well. So now I feel quite intimidated because he really is AI royalty.
Yeah, very, very much. Kieran, Deirdre, what are the most significant ways AI is changing the types of jobs and careers available? We're seeing such impactful change. Kieran, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, of course. The most obvious way, so I lead an AI company. We create AI tools. So what I see, obviously, is a lot more jobs in AI. AI engineers, cloud engineers. Interestingly, though, on the sort of business side of AI, there are roles in AI strategy, and really important roles, actually, looking at how you change your organization, how AI can help support that. Lots of change and transformation projects around this space. AI is not a technical or a technology project. It is a people and culture project when you're trying to adopt it. AI governance and risk management, that is something that is coming because people are going to, I think, as we deploy more AI tools within organizations, we're going to quickly realize we do need a very clear way of governing and looking after those. Not least because the EU Act, so if you're doing anything in the EU, you need to have tracking of decisions and the way AI has supported or indeed made decisions. So I think some of the more worrying areas, of course, is fewer entry-level jobs. And that is, I am not seeing the jobs apocalypse, and we obviously read about that a lot in the media, but it is a kind of certainly some job reduction. McKinsey are reduced their number of new intakes. I've seen a number of organizations have done that. Those kind of tasks, I'm a management consultant by background, and you come into that world basically making PowerPoint slides. That's where you start. Of course, that really isn't needed anymore. So I think that is the greatest concern. And last bit from me, I think as a sort of management layer, which is where AI is really coming for us, I think, it's the question really to ask is less about which jobs are at risk, although that's important, but which tasks within the job is AI going to take, and therefore what should the human elevate to do? I call people humans all the time now. I never did this before I worked in AI. It's quite weird. But the people in the organization can elevate themselves away from some of the things which are arguably a bit less insightful and useful to be doing some of that more interesting work and let AI take the rest of it. But very, very clear concern, entry-level jobs. I have a 20-year-old son finishing uni next year, and he's saying to me, there is nothing, is there? What am I going to do? So,
yeah, it's alarming, isn't it? Like with Deirdre, I wouldn't mind coming to you because you could come at this from many, many different hats of like, you know, running your own AI business as well, careers advice, guidance, advising governments, all sorts of stuff. But where are you seeing significant ways that AI is changing the types of jobs and careers, thinking longer term about a career? Like, you know, how is that making a change? What do we need to be thinking about?
I'd like to sort of build on what Gray and Kieran have said, and just maybe add a few other dimensions. So I'm a female tech innovator. I'm very proud of that fact. I'm relatively new in the tech business. I've been very much immersed in it for the last 6 years. And I also have sort of worked around the world around the state of careers, employment, unemployment. So just pick up first on Kieran's point about entry-level exposure. I do think that this is one of the most serious risks that we here in the UK face, but actually we also face it in can see it in many other countries as well. So that sort of stepping stones into careers, whether they're careers in AI, whether they're different types of hybrid careers, or whether they're traditional careers that will continue around the sort of the human element within it. So I think that the knock-on effect really of this entry-level exposure is that young people are not really clear about how to get into, how to get on, or actually how to move up in terms of opportunity. I'm a great believer of AI as a social good. I really believe my philosophy is that humans have to be in the building, not just the building of the AI, but in the actual support mechanisms, the sort of human element. We'll maybe come on to that later. So just really to say, it's not just whether the jobs will exist at all, it's just how can we now begin to drive the agenda in making these opportunities available. I think the second thing just to say is I'm currently working on a research project with my colleague, Dr. Chris Percy, where we're looking at the G7 countries. And one of the big issues is about the older workforce as well, the 50 plus, and how AI is changing the types of jobs and careers available there. And I speak to Gray's point about, and I think Kieran mentioned this too, there's a lot of discussion about jobs are disappearing, there will be no jobs. Actually, it's task level disruption within roles that we have got to help educate people on. So AI is unbundling jobs into tasks. Some are automatable and some are not, and some will never be able to, in terms of how the AI performs today. The skills system thinks still in a very whole job category, which is increasingly the wrong sort of, if you like, unit of analysis. We've got to look at lifelong learning, we've got to look at skills, and we've got to look at how careers in different sectors, there's a lot of unevenness in sector specific. So we can't just talk about jobs generally. Every sector is different. As Kieran said, AI, all the jobs there for the programmers changing. For example, hospitality, the sort of people facing things, AI will impact on that. Of course it will, but in different ways to that which I've just described. So I think those are the sort of, let's keep our eye on the sectorial contrast and the depth of the adoption, because it will be at different speeds. I'm an SME, I've got 2 small businesses, and I would say, even though I'm really immersed in AI, I haven't got it in every aspect. I'm not using it to the full potential, but we will see, I think, over time, more people using it more smartly and being clear about where it actually works to good effect and where it doesn't.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. Great.
Thanks, Deirdre, Kieran. What I'm hearing is that it's very complex, I think is what you're saying. There's not a simple answer. just to change track a tick.
I think it's breaking up a little bit there, Gray.
If that's okay, could we just talk about?
I think that broke a bit, but I've got an idea what Gray was going to ask. Actually, is that balance between human and technical skills in the new landscape that we're seeing. Kieran.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the big challenges in this space is the human kind of role of judging AI output. I kind of think so. All AI, every AI tool you use has the caveat: this AI can be wrong, and we are left as humans to judge whether or not that is a good answer. That skill is really difficult, particularly if you're not an expert. So the kind of long-term future of, well, if we're going to lose entry-level jobs into things, so where's the expertise going to come from as the older folks sort of move on? So I think you've got to, we need the skills in that kind of critical thinking, in understanding how to judge an AI's output. I think the kind of future of, I mean, this is Gartner's view really, but I mean, I completely agree with it. So I'll share it as if mine. But the idea that we might see organizations where we have a human in a team running multiple agents and running the sort of end-to-end process governing their agents, I think those are very likely the next set of skills which will be in high demand. And it's how businesses, if you want to sort of move to an AI first organization, that's probably a very sensible thought process to have. But I think, go on.
No, Kieran, I was going to say it's changing how that management and supervisory and leadership skill, isn't it? You're not just looking at humans; you're now looking at bots, physical, digital, and I think that's kind of interesting. That human to agent ratio, or human to bot ratio, I think is really, really interesting. Is only going to expand what Microsoft also call like a frontier firm, which is kind of interesting as to where we're going to, because management, you've always thought for hundreds of years was people. Do you know? And it's sort of kind of changed it a bit.
Similarities, interestingly, I think. I mean, through my career as a management consultant, the single biggest thing, if I could wave a magic wand and fix the world of business, I think that causes the most amount of trouble is ambiguity. You go into a meeting, you think you understood what somebody said, you didn't quite get it right, they didn't explain it properly, there was context missing, and you go off and waste hours and days of people's time doing the wrong thing. AI is the same. And I think getting clear about how you instruct an agent, or just AI generally, that's some of that's in the prompting, we call it at the moment. I think that's going away, by the way, the need for prompting. But the way you kind of give the data, give the context, and set and remove the opportunity for ambiguity in AI is really important if you're then going to sort of allow it unfettered access to kind of do the job. So I got this hope that maybe AI will help us crack this ambiguity problem, which I think has caused a load of wasted effort in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely. Deirdre, anything you would want to add about human technical skills in this new landscape?
Yeah, sure. Like, I think if I can be provocative, I think it's a bit of a sort of false binary, humans versus the technical, because as humans, we are technical as well as technical and all sorts of other things. I think there's two words that come to my mind in this context, and one is complementarity. So we've got to find out and navigate our way to our sort of complementarity of the human skills versus some of the technical things that AI can do on scale. It can do it pretty consistently. And the second word is curated. So I'm not 100% convinced at this moment in time that we can put all our faith in AI. I think that we need to have a curated approach. You could call it a safety net, because we know that AI hallucinates. We know that there's a great risk that if everybody just leans into it, lazyitis could set in, and we begin to de-skill ourselves because we're not really using our cognitive thinking and our brains. So I think that's curated and complementarity. So here in the UK, we have a careers chatbot called CC, one of a few. And basically what we ensure is that we have humans, not just in the building of that, but humans in actually making sure they're available to connect with people. I think the second point in this is, what frameworks are we using at the present time to sort of help us understand that human and technical skills piece? Gray mentioned the Bridge framework, which I must look up because I haven't looked at that directly. But I've been doing some work in higher education, in schools and in colleges, as well as in local authorities. And one of the big messages that we really get is about trust, and really around what kind of framework would we need to have. Now, my colleague Chris, who is much cleverer than I am and does a lot of the AI techies.
I doubt that, Deirdre.
I keep him on his toes. So we've actually developed something called the Secure Framework. Very happy to share it afterwards if it's of interest. And it's really just about safety, evolution, complementary, user-centeredness, reliability, and explicitness. And I think people are going to need more frameworks. And this is only one. There'll be maybe colleagues on the listening and contributing in the chat. But really, Secure is really very much built on AI complementing, not substituting the human judgment. We're not ready to let go, I think, of our human judgment. And if I may, just another quickie on this, is that why I think durable skills will rise in value, which is the human judgment, the trust, the ethical reasoning, the navigating ambiguity. All of this becomes more valuable, I think. Precisely, AI, I think, is strong where humans are weak. So it's strong on being able to scale up and actually give consistency. And it's weak where the humans are strong. So we care, we're empathetic. Now, I know you could teach an AI to become a chatbot or robot to be empathetic and all of that. But we've got context, which often, and also accountability. So until the governing structures are in place and are much tighter, we really have got to make sure that there is accountability and that AI will do no harm to those who use it.
Yeah, 100%. I think some really interesting points in there. Alexandra, you must have sort of, it was coming just as you were saying it, Deirdre. I didn't want to sort of bring away, Alexandra, that could be a whole live stream, could be a whole day. In fact, it could be all of Kieran's job actually is about how to be able to deliver this within fairness, trust, and without losing quality. But I think, you know, as Gray was saying around moving from experimentation and sort of confidence to then moving into whole areas that Deirdre was saying is probably a touch on that. Maybe something to catch up with Kieran offline or something like that, Alexandra, would be a good idea. But I'd say some things that you pulled out from there, everyone, that are interesting are like the power of critical thinking, but also emotional intelligence as well when looking at this around AI and what we're doing with embedding. We're flying through time, which I knew we would. Deirdre, one really quick one: careers advice and guidance. You're on. I've got to ask you, what way can we be looking at really succinctly on thinking of careers advice and guidance with AI, but also having that human in the loop as well?
Well, first of all, I am going to make the case that we should have career guidance as an entitlement for all young people and adults. And we should lean into the AI alongside the sort of trusted professionals. One of the reasons I got involved in developing CC, which stands for Careers Innovation, Careers Intelligence, it's a chatbot, is that I really want those humans in that building and in the loop around being able to support. Career guidance here in England, for example, There are high demands on schools and colleges and universities, but no dedicated ring-fenced funding to do so. Lots of strategic sort of ambitions, but actually at the practical level, not a lot of resource. So I think the role of careers information advice and guidance, it's the golden thread that actually sits between the labour market realities and the learning opportunities and skills and everything there. And I think what we have to do really for careers advice is we've got to allow people to do more career exploring on their own terms. And we can use AI to really good effect on the information and the advice. And we can connect them to a human advisor, which is what we do in Career Chat UK. But also that in-depth guidance piece, if you think about the state of people's well-being, young people, mental health, we can also begin to sort of program our tools to really have that duality of careers exploration and wellness. So something maybe for another day. And you asked me to be very brief. The other thing I just want to say is that there's, thanks to the Nuffield Foundation here in England, they have actually funded a 2-year research project, which is looking at an evaluation framework for large language models for careers advice. It's going to, if I put it into 1 or 2 sentences, it's a 2-year project, and it will be, if you like, AI versus the human advisor and everything in between. There'll be a randomized control trial within it. There'll be case studies with personas, and they will be judged against the large language models, and there will be panel reviews of how people are using large language models. So keep in touch, anyone who's listening, who wants to hear more. But the point I want to make is that how would you know which LLM to trust for careers advice? There's the generic ones, there's specialist ones, and I'm just one of a number. And we need to have an evaluation framework now that not only informs the practitioners around making good decisions on which tool is going to work best in which set of circumstances, but also for the policymakers as well. Because what we don't want is we don't want government departments going off reinventing the wheel and actually producing things when there's really good things out there. And I think they have to say that equity is, without good guidance, you know, what we're going to find is that for those people who can afford to pay for wonderful AI enhanced systems, they will be actually at an advantage. And that's another topic for another day, around students who are using AI, who pay for the extras compared to those who just aren't going to be able to do that. So I think we have to be on a mission around this topic, which is how do we ensure that we don't make that gap of inequity wider and inequality, that we need to think of using AI to actually close that gap with humans in the building.
Yeah, definitely. We're totally nearly out of time, but Kwame, can I hand over to you around some of the things you talk about, assessment qualification?
Yeah, sure. Hopefully my technical issues are behind me. So yeah, Deirdre and Kieran, Gavin asked me before about qualifications and how they need to change. What's your thoughts about how qualifications need to change to reflect new skills?
I mean, a 1 minute answer each, if that's all right, because time is gone.
Really tough, isn't it? Pace needs to improve. I think you touched on that earlier, Gray. And I agree with your point, putting some AI into each of them, when you're talking about a role that you're building a qualification for. I think getting an AI angle in, so at least people understand more about it and how it might change or impact that world.
Very briefly, I think static sort of point-in-time qualifications sit very awkwardly now against the realities of the labour market and the impact of AI. So I think assessment needs to sort of capture that sort of applied and evolving competence, not just a one-off credential.
Yeah, no, cool.
Yeah,
the series was rewriting the rules, so I'm gonna push on a little bit because this has got such a cool panel. Kieran, Deirdre, if you could change one thing for the skill system to fit an AI-driven world, what would it be, Kieran?
we need the pace to catch up. I really think what Deirdre just said is really important. It's that continual kind of learning, that lifelong learning approach. If I was changing one thing, I would put in the AI. I'm sort of repeating myself really, to make sure that AI is throughout it. Very tricky to know what you would teach. What would you put into a qualification? Because a year ago, given the pace of these, you'd be saying it's all about good prompting. I think it's very clear to me, agentic AI is removing the need for prompting. You still got to give context, you still got to kind of instruct, if you like, but it can now go and get the context and go and find the things. It doesn't need you to prompt, and it's improving all the time. So very, very challenging. I wouldn't want to be in Gray's shoes, having to decide today what people in a year or two might need to know about AI.
Yeah, no, definitely. Deirdre, we're well over time, but what would you want to see further?
You know what I'm going to say, Gavin. We need to ensure that people have access to really good careers. Guidance is defined by the OECD, and that's not just for young people, but for adults and on a lifelong basis. And we have to, even more now is the time that we've got to push that message very strongly to change our economies and people's lives for the better.
Yeah, no, definitely. Gray, what would you want to see?
Very quickly, I'd like to see AI collaboration built into qualification and assessment. So I think that's a win-win. I think we develop real-world skills that employers want, but also we start to evaluate what does good AI collaboration look like and be able to measure it.
Yeah, no, very cool. If it was me, I'd want us to be able to develop a real proper agile system, an agile skill system, which incremental steps, because we're trying to predict in the future. That's like waterfall method. If we can agile, keep going, we can see the direction of change, and then we can try to match those needs. That for me would be key, but it's going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible to do. But thank you, everyone. What a really cool show. Or sorry, the time flight and I've gone over, but I'm sure everyone doesn't mind that much. I want to say thank you to NCFE for a really, really cool 2 seasons. So rewriting the rules was our first mini series, really cool. Love rewriting the rules. And also, thank you, Gray, for today. Kieran, Deirdre, always thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. See you really soon for our next season. Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye. Bye.